There are huge changes coming to Battlefield 2042. DICE and EA have come together and released a blog post detailing the second and third patches that the game is going to receive over this next month period. And some of them are very exciting, and it fixes a lot of critical issues and improves quality of life in the game quite substantially. Now there's a lot to go through in these update notes, and we're going to talk about it here today. This blog post is about 5,000 words long and details the second update, which is dropping this Thursday, and the third update, which is the slightly more substantial one, dropping early December, and the alleged rumor date for that is December 7th. Now before the blog post begins, it details some issues that they've noticed with general performance in the game and server stability. It's clear that PC performance isn't going to improve anytime soon, although they are saying that they're going to optimize as best as they can in the short term, whilst hopefully delivering more substantial optimizations in the long term. They also noticed that they fixed some issues on console, especially on Xbox, where allegedly the console was power cycling during the game, resulting in bad performance. They said they are aware of the hitbox issue server side and are trying to investigate and try and bring up instances of how this is occurring and actively solve it. This is probably something that's more of a back-end system, so it's likely that we'll see a fix for this come out without necessarily seeing a client patch. But they are aware of it, so if you've had instances where you're just not getting hit markers on opponents, this is something that they are looking into. The update notes also touch on gunplay and XP gain in Battlefield Portal, and the next two updates will substantially improve both of these things, with gunplay being massively improved in this first update on Thursday. They also believe that they now have a more dynamic XP progression system in Portal, meaning you will be able to create Portal experiences that will allow you to gain XP. They think that they've made this system more smarter, meaning that I think, from what the wording says, they're able to identify areas where people are deliberately trying to XP farm, and because of that, it means they'll be able to shut those down quickly. The initial update is dropping Thursday the 25th of November. It's improved the soldier revive system and has allegedly fixed the issue where you were unable to revive a soldier when they die close to an object. They also believe that they've managed to solve the issue of not being able to actually give up in the game, so you will just automatically die after 30 seconds if you encounter that bug. They're re-enabling the UAV-1 on Battlefield Portal in the Bad Company maps, which was severely overpowered, and the big two for this update is a full rebalance of the LCAA hovercraft and the MD540 Nightbird. So the Little Bird and the Hovercraft are getting balancing passes to make them less powerful in the game, which is a very welcomed addition. Hopefully we see the M5C Bolt receive a similar kind of patch soon. And the biggest one here is that dispersion, spread, or bloom, as some of you may call it, has been reduced for every single weapon in the game, except for shotguns, which is super exciting, and we're finally going to be able to get back to that beta gunplay, which was very enjoyable. They've reduced the spread globally when zoomed and when moving. They've also increased the stationary accuracy for weapons when you've zoomed in, and spread now decreases faster and earlier when pacing shots, so single fire weapons and short bursting ARs over distance will now be massively more effective. They've also increased the PP29's vertical recoil to make sure it doesn't outperform ARs. And for those of you who have encountered the spread bug in Battlefield Portal, where the spread would be massively too high when trying to fire whilst zooming in straight after sprinting, that is being solved in Battlefield Portal for Update 3, which again is allegedly on December 7th. So let's talk about the improvements that are being made in Update 3, and this is the big one. The majority of the blog post is taken up by Update 3, and it's quite substantial. Now we're starting with the user interface, and the user interface and the HUD are actually separate parts of this blog post, and some very promising changes here. But the big one I've seen in the user interface is the fact they've actually improved the ways that you can manage your attachments in the game, which is very promising for building loadouts and will massively reduce the number of clicks needed to do this. There's also allegedly a lot of experience upgrades in terms of the end of round screen and transitioning from the main menu to end of round and transitioning into a game. All of these have allegedly been smoothed out. They also say that they've improved the matchmaking reliability and improved the ability to invite people through crossplay. So in terms of UI and interfaces, and in terms of the matchmaking as well, the actual transitioning from getting from a game to a game and out of a game should be a much better experience. For progression, they've introduced weekly missions providing challenges that reward cosmetic unlocks. They've also added a first match bonus for Hazard Zone, fixed an issue with XP rewards for Angel, improved overall XP and rank tracking, improved the mastery rank tracking, and improved the reliability of tracking for XP as a whole. They fixed a number of visual flickering and stuttering issues across various maps as well as reflections, and have improved some artifacting with DLSS. so progression unlocks and some graphical upgrades. Map-wise, they say that they have over 150 changes and individual fixes, saying that they've addressed various issues with map geometry and have managed to make more of the maps behave as intended. So if you've ever had an issue where you're firing a gun and it seems to be clipping off of something that isn't quite there, that should hopefully be solved now. They also say that they've resolved a large number of collision and placement issues, so if you've crashed into an invisible wall, for example, that should also be solved. For Battlefield Portal, we're seeing the addition of the Rush mode, as well as official templates for Team Deathmatch, FFA for Gunmaster, and even an Infection template. They've also added a rules editor ability to detect what players were killed with and why to add to the logic. So another exciting addition to Battlefield Portal. I for one am very excited for Rush in 2042 in the all-out warfare maps, which is super exciting. They've also added server info on the pause screen and also added the ability for server admins to write periodic server messages and added support for reporting a server in the pause menu. They've also allegedly deployed a series of visual, audio and gameplay improvements to weapons, vehicles and gadgets across the Portal experience. Now there is a section on Hazard Zone, but there aren't any real major changes here. The only big one I see is that they've actually made it so that you can no longer check how many players are connected to the server to increase the tension available in Hazard Zone. But overall, no real redesign so far in Update 3. They have allegedly smoothed out some processes in the game for Hazard Zone and added some more visibility layers, but nothing really special. For Conquest and Breakthrough, they've reduced the amount of information spam on screen, which is super exciting. And in Breakthrough specifically, they've tuned the capture times for the Breakthrough capture modes, and they've also changed the elapsed time in both the scoreboard and deploy screen. They've also made out-of-bounds defender spawning better in Breakthrough to make sure that you're able to consistently spawn more safely and defend objectives, and they're also doing things such as changing a few UI elements and HUD elements to make it more presently obvious when a team is about to lose. Now there are a lot of other fixes coming as well, and again these are just a sample of the overall setup. And in general fixes, we're seeing some fixes for missing loadouts, as well as some issues on Kaleidoscope. They've also allegedly smoothed out the interaction system and have improved a lot of the animations in the initial insertion into the game, which is very exciting and will hopefully make for a more smooth experience. They've also improved the tornado and smoke visual effects, as well as a large number of collision issues with large-scale animations and items, and improved location-based audio for both the sandstorm and destruction. Moving on to vehicles, and they fixed an issue where vehicle countermeasures sometimes don't fire, causing people to get blown up or allowing the missile to lock on and reacquire the same target that it previously locked onto. This has been solved and will result in far less AA kills that come from just pure random luck. They've also fixed an issue on the hovercraft to make sure that the front window can be shot through to reduce how powerful the hovercraft is. They've also fixed a lot of instances where vehicles would become stuck on in-game geometry, and made some minor tweaks to physics and a few other systems across the F-35, the attack helicopter, tow missile, and even the Nightbird. So generally a good balancing pass and some upgrades here and there. Now we've already discussed the weapon changes that are coming in Update 2, but in Update 3 they've actually reduced the effectiveness of the NTW-50 against vehicles, and also fixed the 8x scope having a faster ADS speed than the other scopes available in the game. They've also fixed a couple of reload issues, soldiers who are unable to shoot after being hacked whilst in a vehicle, and removed some of the animation delays when switching back to a weapon after throwing a grenade. There have been a lot of updates to the hunt here as well, which is super exciting. They've added a UI list that shows nearby players that can revive you within 50 meters when downed, and also shows incoming revivers when downed and pinged by a player that intends to revive you. So the system we had in Battlefield 5. And when you're low on health on ammo, you'll notice that players within 50 meters now show a resource icon above their head, indicating that they can provide you with health or ammo, hopefully increasing the team play variance across the game. They've also increased the big map resolution for improved navigation. They've added health bars for enemy vehicles, allow you to now see your fire mode of your weapon without having to ADS, and the HUD will now tell you who has healed you or who has given you ammo. Moving on to audio, they say that they've improved the reliability of various audio sounds when happening off screen, such as reviving, the ballistic shield, flares, wingsuits, vehicle smoke discharges, and system repairs. They've also switched the lock-on warning sound with the incoming missile warning sound, and improved the weapon mix for enemies firing at the player, so hopefully you should hear more enemy audio in terms of them shooting nearby. They've also generally tweaked the content and mix for distant weapons, improving audibility at range, and have now prevented warning warning sounds and transmission sounds from continuing when a vehicle has low health. For individual specialists, they've changed Sundance's grenade belt and fixed an issue where the anti-armor grenade would lock onto one target, spin around in a circle, and then lock onto another, meaning that the Sundance grenade will lock onto a single target now, and if that target flares off or gets out of range, it will simply detonate without hitting the target, rather than acquiring another one. We're also seeing fixes to the loadout crate and some polish added there. We're also seeing fixes to Irish's cover, Dozer's ballistic shield, modifications to Rao's cyber warfare suite, which actually allows him to slightly reacquire targets quicker. An audible sound will now play when you're actually scanned by Jisoo. They've changed Casper's drone to allow it to be more easily hit, but also a little bit faster, so hopefully a more balanced Casper drone. They've changed it so that Boris's sentry gun only now gets destroyed when the owner dies as opposed to going down, and fixed various issues with both the Boris sentry gun and the wingsuit. They've also added some extra effects and some lock-on and lock-off sounds for the Surette pistol, which is very interesting for Falk, and they fixed some issues with the grappling hook for Webster McCain. Pretty much every single gadget in the game, from smoke grenades, AT mines, SOFLAMs, the recoilless, the C5 explosive, has had a huge amount of changes, mostly coming down to fixes, and the only major one I can really see is that the deploy time of the C5 explosive has actually been reduced, allowing it to be detonated a little bit quicker. Overarchingly, not a huge amount of changes in terms of gadgets and primarily a fix system, which should hopefully improve the quality of life for the game. Same in terms of the melee system and the soldier system, lots of fixes have been done here to improve the overall setup and feel of individual soldiers and the melee system. For example, they've adjusted a couple of poses in the game, fixed issues where players sometimes appeared to be floating even though they were prone, adjusted a few animations for the soldier animations, fixed issues with traversal sprint in terms of the animation breaking, and also fixed a lot of animation issues with the melee takedown system. So that's about it, and honestly the blog post is a lot longer than what I've read out to you, with a lot more detail, so chances are if something that you've noticed is broken in the game is probably in this actual blog. There are just some that I had to, prioritize, and some that I glazed over. But overarchingly, a huge array of fixes and really good quality of life improvements to both the UI and HUD, the gunplay, hopefully the server-side system, and a very good rebalance initially of Battlefield 2042. Although the game definitely didn't start off on the best foot, this is definitely a very strong foot forward. Update 2 should be dropping this Thursday, and Update 3 should be out in early December, but so far a really great push and a really great start from the Battlefield team for 2042, and hopefully things continue to improve as we head into the new year and Season 1 of content, which should be super exciting. If you enjoyed this video, guys, feel free to leave a subscribe. We're on the road to 100,000 here, and I would really appreciate it. As always, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.